written. The essay is on the critical analysis of the philosophical conception of Tao in Laozi's Daodejing and being in Heidegger's Being and Time. And I'm at Swinburne University of Technology. And in my brief introduction, I will say that in order to find the intersection between Taoism and Heidegger, where Heidegger was influenced by Taoism, I revised them separately, reading about philosophical Taoism and updating my knowledge of Heidegger from my philosophy major at Melbourne University. I searched for a connection between Taoism's nothingness and Heidegger's ontology and found papers that addressed the result, ontological nothingness. I searched for a paper that would connect these terms, and I found Adorno's paper connecting Taoism's nothingness and humbleness to reason, like Heidegger's ontology. I searched for a reason for this connection and found that Heidegger's critique of computational English or ontology relied on a kind of reason paste or connection between reasons, which I interpreted as experience. Finally, I found another connection between Taoism and Heidegger, that of authentication between the self and other, repeated throughout texts on the intersection. My abstract is that Tao and being are correct as written about by Laozi and Heidegger respectively, is exposed through 8 focal points of reasoning: noumenization, narration, authentication, abducingness, epistemology, emptiness, and technologization of nature. I aim to model Heidegger's and Laozi's ontological nothingness on an experiential model, where reasons R1 of the self and R2 of the other are authenticated to have the common experience E. My investigation is into the Magna Opera, Laozi's Daodejing, and Heidegger's Being and Time. So, my introduction was that Taoism's Tao, the world-conscious doctrine, is connected with Heidegger's Being and Being and Time in a chain by, in turn, Wu, the root, which Tao influences, and the myriad things which originate from the root and which contain the Taoist Heideggerian being. So, just my first paragraph reads that the Tao shapes the root originating from nothingness. So, Tao, the world-conscious discourse, is connected to Heidegger's being, which is translated as doctrine, where a doctrine should be followed carefully and represented by knowledge of competency being required to follow the Tao. The transformation of Taoism's idea from Hegel's idea is similar to the process of Hegel's concept of the self-animated spirit rising upwards, where Hegel's idea is represented by the competency required by self-animated spirit to rise upwards, and Taoism's idea is represented by knowledge of competency being required to follow the Tao doctrine and should be needed to create a university experience.
Excuse me, Lucian, you want to put the microphone on?
Oh,
it's
yes.
just in front of you, hanging on your right. Just there, at the very front, and at the back, sorry. See it underneath?
Oh, I see.
Would that help?
Yes. Thank you for that.
Sorry. Is that working?
Yes. Is it turned up? No. Hello? Let's see. Hello? Hello. That's better, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. In paragraph 2, the ancient Taoist sages Wang Bi and He Yan argued that ontological nothingness was the root of reality in the Xuanxue school, which means study of the mysterious. The ontological generativity that David Chai argued for included a mother-like complement of ontology, where ontological generativity should be protected by medicine. The term ontological nothingness, coming from ontological generativity, Wu, ideally describes the universe in terms of the being, capital B being, lowercase b being me, and non-being nothingness Wu dyad. Non-being nothingness Wu is the root as agreed by Wang Bi and He Yan. The term Wu means both non-being and nothingness, where non-being is a priori form of being. In Taoism, Yo represents being and being, which are dependent on each other, unlike capital B being and B, lowercase b being, in Heidegger's being and time, which are not dependent on each other. That was in Taoism, Yo represents B, lowercase b being and lowercase b being, which are dependent on each other. The development of Taoism is a result of this transition of being, non-being from epistemology to ontology. Wang and He Yan agreed that nothingness formed the root of philosophy, where the name given to this nothingness was Wu, where the root was labelled as being utilised differently by her, who is not interested in how the yin and yang manifest into myriad things, but what it is the yin and yang are based on. And yet Wang. Nothingness is not to be confused with absolute nothingness, which was associated with the questionable movement in ancient China. From Wu stems the myriad things, from the smallest things in the world to the largest things in the universe, including ontic non-beings, where ontic non-beings are another part of the myriad things, where ontic non-beings are a priori or planned living things. Yo, which means being, includes noumena, the workings of the things, examples of which are yin and yang, representing interdependent forces, among which are the examples female and male respectively. The Taoist study of the mysterious, about which Wang Bi and He Yang hypothesized the nothingness form the root of philosophy, is different from a variant which gives rise to both the myriad and the system of epistemology. I developed a variant of Taoist concept of nothingness that gives rise to both the myriad and the system of epistemology. The variant of the Taoist concept of nothingness gives rise to the myriad non-finite generations containing the world of natural phenomena. The myriad contains a world of natural phenomena which self-germinate or mate, including a seed and hence another root or start of a new generation which links to yin of the yin and yang pair and yo being. Wu, the root, links to yin, a mother of the yin and yang pair, initiating the cycle. The variant of the Taoist concept of nothingness gives rise to the system of epistemology which verifies that the root is formed, containing being and non-being. The epistemological system contains non-being, containing yang, man, a starter of man-made generations, starting another cycle. Non-being, the house, contains yang, the man, starting another cycle. This paragraph has described a variant of the Taoist concept of nothingness that gives rise to both the myriad and the system of epistemology. I will argue that Tao and being, as discussed by Laozi and Heidegger respectively, are correct because of the reasoning of nature, which is correct because of the ontological nothingness present in their texts. Laozi's Daodejing is well known for encouraging humbleness and unassumingness. As humbleness and unassumingness are what Laozi's Daodejing is well known for, powerlessness and nothingness are described in Adorno's jargon for authenticity, a critique of Heidegger's being and time. Adorno argues against Heidegger's person of authenticity, Eigenlichkeit, by characterizing him as powerless and nothingness-like, where powerlessness and nothingness are necessary attributes of an authentic person, distracting the authentic of the ability to object to a state of affairs presented by the divine rights of the soul. The nothingness that Adorno writes about is a necessary attribute of an authentic person and a source of an essence from which reason is derived. Reason, similar to Laozi's Daodejing, the nothingness that Adorno characterizes the authentic person as originating from an essence, in which the nothingness is similar to reason, is verified to be good when matched with experience because of the same reason being matched with experience elsewhere. The nothingness, like reason's experience, being matched with another good reason's experience, where these two duplicates of the experience are recorded in a tautological structure, EE, or experience, where Adorno argues that the authentic capital B being of the possibility of taking the whole Dasein in advance in an existential, ontic, or thing-like manner. I argue that the authentic capital B being self becomes what it wants to become by a tautology containing the experience and experience of the other being verified to be identical of this tautology of the self. The tautology that Adorno utters should be used to verify Heidegger's amounts as nothing like reason to be good. Adorno writes, the authentic being unto death, the possibility of taking the whole Dasein in advance in an existential manner, that is to say, it includes the possibility of existing as a whole potentiality for being, becomes what it wants to be by a tautology being uttered. Heidegger is defended by Adorno by the nothing like reasons experiences place being matched with another good reason experiences place, which require an additional PP or place or tautology, in that it is satisfiable to be satisfied with the EE experience tautology. Where Adorno argues nothing less like death determines Heidegger's conception of Dasein can coincide with the course of projecting the conception with the principle of abstract selfhood. I argue that this authentic selfhood reasons out the good reason of the self that is verified to coincide with the same experience in the same place of the other. As the places and experiences for good reasons reasoned out by the authentic selfhood coincide, the reasons are proved to be good. Adorno also writes, as a limit, death not only determines Heidegger's conception of Dasein, but it coincides in the course of the projecting the conception with the principle of abstract selfhood, which withdraws absolutely into itself, persevering in itself. The prologue program, same EXP or PL, shows that places and experiences for good reasons coincide in good reasons, similar to those reasoned out by the authentic selfhood. Reasons R1 of the self and R2 of the other are authenticated to have a common experience E when they are at the same place P, as shown by the program CX, same XP, not PL. In same XP.PL, reasons R1 and R2 are shown to match experience lines 1 and 2 because of having the same experience of place atoms E and P respectively. However, lines 3 and 4 do not, because these have different experience and place atoms, as you can see. The lines, and last two lines, lines 3 and 4, they obviously don't have the same experience and place atoms, E, Z, and P, and E and P, Z, and found elsewhere, but in lines 1 and 2 above those two lines. But reasons R1 and R2 have, in this case, have the same experience and place atoms. The humbleness and unassummingness that Daodejing is well known for encouraging fosters a primary age personal birth argument. One should claim that an ontological nothingness being present in the text of Laozi and Heidegger is correct, which shows that Dao and being are correct as written about by Laozi and Heidegger respectively. Dao and being as written about by Laozi and Heidegger respectively are correct because of nominalization of nature, which is correct because of answering what a thing in itself is. To answer the question of what a thing in itself is, it is a personal growth argument similar to that used in primary school. A thing in itself, similar to a personal growth argument, is revealed by aletheia to undo concealing the acupuncture needle. By aletheia revealing, the undoing of concealing is shown to work well by inserting the acupuncture needle to bridge the gap between outside and inside and help the patient return to normal. The thing in itself, as primary aged personal growth argument, must adapt to and deal with it constantly, changing inside and outside the body. Zhang writes, a traditional Chinese doctor stated that the human contains constantly changing environment inside and outside the body, e.g. how disease develops, tension at work and during life in general, feelings, food, the weather and climate. As the acupuncture needle helps the patient return to normal, he is part of the event in erectness when he makes the transformation from weak to strong. Erectness is that in which the subject patient is part of the event, in which he makes this transformation from weak to strong. as the acupuncture needle bridges the gap between outside and inside, Chinese medicine should be a course that interprets and involves the human as a succession of transformations and observable events, and as a group of permeable and realistic relationships. Zhang also writes about the story of Bernie as traditional Chinese doctor, which shows that an entire process of diagnosis and treatment in traditional Chinese medicine should be a course that interprets and involves the human as a succession of transformations and observable events, and as a group of permeable and realistic relationships. A thing in itself, which is a personal growth argument which manifests a chain of people with government that assists and advances students, develops student programs, is exemplified by assisting with writing a human pedagogical argument to help accomplish a student's goal of the Taoist conception of oneness with optimal academic achievement. For example, a schoolmaster may employ Heidegger's conception of concealment to conceal a part of Pfizer's nature, such as a human pedagogical argument to help accomplish a student's goal of the Taoist conception of oneness with optimal academic achievement. Zhang analyzes the Taoist conception of oneness through its parallels with Western philosophies, particularly the German philosopher Heidegger's ontology. A human's pedagogical argument, concealed in afar by a schoolmaster who employed Heidegger's conception of concealment, may be unconcealed by a student. A student would unconceal a human pedagogical argument with traces of Taoist thought to attain heart, beauty, and bliss. A reflection on translocal academic associations which unconceals the rhizominic traces of Taoist thinking enable us to debate the gap between analytic and the analysed, and by doing so to think of other ideas and ethnographic possibilities, including the possibility of understanding and being human. Taoist traces of rhizomicity, a sub-branch in a hierarchical argument, property of a human pedagogical argument, present in a human pedagogical argument that is concealed by a schoolmaster. The heart, beauty, and bliss attained by unconcealing the human as pedagogical argument with traces of Taoist thought is akin to heaven, Chen Bren He, heaven and human are one. Chen Ren Hei, meaning heaven and human are one, contains a trace of the opposition between healthiness and unhealthiness, revealing happiness, transcending sadness and unhappiness. The heart attained by concealing human's pedagogical argument with traces of Taoist thought is what the process, the treatment of which is upheld by translocal discourses of Chen Ren Hei is achieved with. Zhang writes about how translocal discourses of Chen Ren Hei in light of groundbreaking knowledge and treatment of human that uphold enmeshment, process, and creativity over divide, opposition, and hierarchy. The answers to solve medical questions that are ready to hand are concealed in Heidegger's conception of concealment as human pedagogical arguments to help accomplish a student's goal of Taoist conception of oneness with optimal academic achievement. The Zhu hand in height, or readiness to hand of answers to solved medical questions, contrasted with the presentness at hand of new medical questions in Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine. The pedagogical arguments that the schoolmaster concealed may be the knots that are Chen Ren Hei that are worked from inside by traditional Chinese medicine doctors with medical science and modernity. The journal continues, instead of thinking with a human and the world in a pre-existing harmonious whole, or fully endorsing the human, the modernist anatomico-pathological perspective of the body, traditional Chinese medicine doctors work and think through Chen Ren Hei from inside, difficult knots with medicine, science, and modernity. One should claim that answering what I think in itself is correct, which shows that Tao and being are correct as written about by Laozi and Heidegger respectively. In addition, Tao and being as written about by Laozi and Heidegger respectively are correct because of the narration of nature, which is correct because of the grand narrative of nature of society progresses, develops and improves. Significances of things in themselves that are personal growth arguments, in which the self is authenticated against the other, are the ways in which the grand narrative of society develops, are added to by the transformation of an unnameable Tao in the self-authenticity, Eigentlichkeit, to the nameable Tao of the they, the betweenness, of which is termed Daodejing. Significances of things in themselves that are personal growth arguments in which the self is authenticated against the other are the ways in which the narrative of society progresses, develops and improves, by making the transformation between the self and the they. Jun writes that betweenness, Daodejing, is contained in Heidegger's notion of authenticity, Eigentlichkeit, of being there here. Where the grand narrative of society is added to as unnameable Tao, the self transforms into the nameable Tao of the they. Empirical evidence is what the conclusion is based on in deductive reasoning, in which the self is authenticated. Therefore, the other is authenticated too. Okay. Deductive reasoning bases a conclusion on empirical evidence, where the self is authenticated, therefore the other is authenticated as well. As a transformation is made from a self to the they in the grand narrative of society, one explores oneself in the same way as in an observatory, which is a building which, with the other similar to the universe. An inhabitant may explore the self similar to an observatory, which is a building, and then the other similar to the universe in an architectural design building. Deductive reasoning bases a conclusion on empirical evidence in the same way the object is transformed into being from non-being and the self is authenticated. Therefore, the other is authenticated. The other as against the self. In the same way that Confucius stated food may be the object that is transformed from non-being to being, which is eaten as a change of setting. The setting of the transformation from non-being, non-existence to being existence may change. As deductive reasoning bases a conclusion on empirical evidence, the self is authenticated, therefore the other is authenticated, and souls travel from heaven to earth, from earth to heaven, sorry. Burek writes that the harmony of this place, for which he wants to take the gateway of a metaphor, should not, however, be understood as a permanently fixed place. It shifts according to the situation and brings out harmony that is itself a blending of differences, so that they come together with mutual benefit and enhancement without losing their separate and particular identities. Ames and Rosemont write that her is conventionally translated harmony, and we follow the rendering and the etymology of the term is culinary. Harmony is the art of combining and blending two or more foodstuffs so that they come together with mutual benefit, enhancement without losing their separate and particular identities. John writes that instead of being mutually opposed, worlding leads unworlding and unfolds through the latter. Burek writes that the moment between existing and not yet existing can also be conceived as going through a gateway, and if we understand this moment in a non-metaphysical way, that gateway is the final thing we can say about the whole process. The convergence of the myriad things goes through a single aperture. The roots of the various happenings all issue from a single gateway. As food makes the transformation from non-being into being, men and women inhabiting beings make the transformation from plans for these buildings. The paranomastically close, a pun, a joke exploiting the close distance between Chinese characters. Tianmen, gateway to heaven, the energy of the person who has eaten the food, and Jian the use of this energy to architecturally design buildings. Represent being, men and women inhabiting these buildings, being brought out of non-being plans for these buildings. food making the transition from being non-being into being is termed worldly in Heidegger. Jahn states that worlding it allows being to be brought out of non-being, according to Heidegger. Burek focuses on these characters, and especially on Sebastian Jan character, as characters that are paradigmatically close to the gateway character. Deductive reasoning and the self being authenticated, therefore the other being authenticated, are done by basing conclusion on empirical evidence. One should claim that the grand narrative of society progressing, developing and improving is correct, which shows that Tao and being are correct as written about by Laozi and Heidegger respectively. In addition, Tao and being as written about by Laozi and Heidegger are correct because of the authentication of nature, which is correct because of authenticating the self's conclusion with the other's evidence. Acting on the self's authority or authenticating the self with the other authenticity is done by basing a conclusion on empirical evidence. Lucian states that being and being there here are the betweenizing of nothingness, thingness. In other words, there is a betweenness between nothingness, self, and a thingness they. Acting on the self's authority or authenticating with the self with the other authenticity is done by basing a conclusion on empirical evidence from the they, where there is a betweenness between the nothingness self and the thingness they. The realism of the nothing self is confirmed to be superior to the thing they, where there is a betweenness between the nothingness self and the thingness they. The realism of the nothingness self is confirmed to be superior to the thing they because of having space for more objects, according to an algorithm Lucian in my chapter on a brief minute about pedagogy, used to measure the object in the nothing self, which stipulates that a computational marking scheme should award a maximum grade of very good to opaque with 130 objects that are measurements within range of pre-specified answers. There is a meaning rate autonomousness distinction between the nothingness self and the thingness they. The algorithm to make the distinction between beings and non-beings follows from that of Lucian in his chapter on computational English synonyms, in which he argues that words can be replaceable with a chain of synonyms along one ray of meaning. Therefore, the algorithm would find the autonomous being and being pair, where being possesses the meaning alive, and the non-being possesses the meaning not alive. One should claim that authenticating the self's conclusion with the other's evidence is correct, which shows that the being, Tao and being are correct as written about by Laozi and